Hey everyone, it's Monica. Welcome back to Homeschool Voices. Today's video is going to make your life a lot easier. Today's video is going to answer so many questions for you in a very short amount of time. And I'm going to start with a really important question. It may not seem related, but it is super related and very important. That question is, why are you doing this? Why are you educating your kids? So you might say, well, I don't want them to be dumb. Okay, well, I think that you don't have to really follow public school guidelines and fill all their little check boxes in order to achieve that goal. So that's not, I don't know if that's the best reason. It's vague, right? We don't want to be vague. Okay, so I'm gonna scrap that idea. What if your reason is, I want my kids to have a good paying job? Well, to get a good paying job, you need to have a college degree. I mean, that's most people's idea. There's a lot of other ways to get there, but for most of you who are watching this, you probably want your kids to go to college. Well, going into college, graduating from college is very doable. Homeschool kids do it all the time. Unschooled kids who have very little academic education up until college, they manage to do it. Kids who have been in programs or kids whose parents have done it just on their own and kind of just piece things together, they all do it, and it's actually not hard. So that's a whole nother topic, but it's the college that gets them the credentialing, that gets them the job. So it's not really what you're doing. So that's not a good answer either. So why are you doing it? I'm going to tell you why I'm doing it. Okay, but why I'm doing it is not necessarily a great reason for you. I mean, I think I'm onto something, but I'm not perfect. And I really think that when this video is done, you need to just stop and just think about, why are you taking this time out of your life, taking this time out of their life? They could be running outside and playing and painting pictures. Why are you doing what you're doing? The reason why I am doing it is I want my children to grow up to be adults who are curious, who want to learn, who are capable of learning, who, when they learn new things, can connect the dots and have their own ideas and express those ideas in an engaging and easy to understand way. So basically, they can communicate effectively. In addition to a couple of skills like typing and also math. I believe in math through algebra, solid algebra skills, because you actually do use algebra in daily life. Not really advanced algebra, but basic algebra, and I just see it as a brain workout. So you're probably wondering, well, what happened to social studies and science? Well, I will get to that. So if I'm going to raise somebody who's curious, is capable of learning, wants to learn. Capable of learning to me is a solid, good reader where it's easy to read. So they're not going to want to read, want to learn, right? And I know you guys there's some of you are going to say, oh, you can learn on videos. No, it's not the same. Your brain does not work the same. I know you can. My son learns a lot from videos, but you learn a lot more by reading. Anything that's in depth, you need a book. Most videos are surface level sort of learning. There are some documentaries and you learn more, but you're going to learn a lot more by reading, but you'll never read if it's hard for you and it's taxing. So as a parent, that informs what we do and when we do it. And I believe in early reading. I believe in teaching it early. I don't believe in this idea of kids being ready. Kids a lot of times aren't ready to potty train. A lot of people say that too. And then they have a 5-year-old that is still wearing diapers. And to me, that's not necessary. So I believe, it's a whole can of worms I just opened up there. I really believe in teaching kids to read early and having them read out loud, reading to them, reading to themselves, a lot of that in the early years, right? So when you're reading, there's only so many stories that you can read. You can get a lot of reading material if you read history. So a lot of biographies, for example. There's so many kids' books on history topics. I have learned so much from kids' picture books on history topics. I have learned a lot. Same with science. Oh my gosh, there's so much that you can learn on science topics from books. And I think everyone has this idea that you need to learn about the scientific method when you're 8 and 9 and 10, and The funny thing is I've looked at a lot of these curriculums and they're not teaching real science at all. I mean, these experiments that they're doing, they're fun, but they're not really academic. You're not really learning that much. It's fun, and I suppose if your kids like it and they feel like it's you feel like it's getting them to like science more, well, then that's beneficial. But at the same time, it's not really academic. So I'm just focusing on what my goals are, right? So I have clarity and why I'm doing this. And a big reason is I want to raise my children to be adults who are curious and capable of learning. They're curious, they want to learn, they're capable of learning. That requires a lot of reading, on the front end especially. And then now that they're getting older, I made a spreadsheet, right, of everything that they do, and I look at it and I say, there is not enough reading. I just joined this charter school and they're big on curriculums, right? And so we included some curriculums, and I'm just looking at everything and saying, there is not enough reading in here. So with my daughter, we got rid of the science curriculum and we changed it out for a combination. We're doing Magic School Bus, so she reads the book, she watches the videos, and she writes a little something about what she learned. Because that is more in line with my focus than the curriculum, which she didn't like. It wasn't really learning anything. It wasn't helping her become more curious. She was becoming less curious. She decided she didn't like science because of it. It was boring her. Wasn't helping her to become a better reader. It just was not moving her towards the goals that I have for her. So it was an easy decision at that point. Similar with my son, with his science curriculum, he really likes some parts of it and other parts he doesn't. And when he brings them to me and I look at them, I say, you're right. This is not helping you to be a more curious person. You're not learning. You are really not going to learn things very well if you find them painfully boring. So it's an easy decision for me in those circumstances. I just say, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. And sometimes, if there are too many things he doesn't have to do, then I will add some new things like reading. I have a lot of books in the house, and I will pick one on a scientific topic and I'll say, read this instead. And I feel good about it because I have clarity about my goals. Another one of my major goals, the number 2, was basically communication. So that's written form and oral form. And that informs the kind of decisions that I make. When I know what my goal is, it's easy to say, yes, I want my kids to learn about logic. You have to be logical if you're going to be able to express yourself clearly and well and to write. Writing is logical. If it's not, people won't be able to follow it, and they'll get bored with it and they'll put it down. So you have to be logical. So it's an easy decision. Yes, I want to do that. Yes, I want to do debate. Yes, I want to do speeches. Does the charter school that I'm with require that my son do regular speeches? No. But to me, it's important. And he can do speeches on science topics. He can do speeches on history topics. He can do any kind of speeches. But it's important that he learn how to speak out loud to people, not be afraid, be engaging, be interesting. And of course, writing. If, like me, that is your goal, then you will make it a priority. Now, you don't want to kill the love. Now, you don't want to make them hate it with all of their being. Don't go crazy. But maybe your first grader can copy 2 sentences and copy them well. Maybe your 3rd grader can copy a paragraph and copy it well. So when you know that's your priority, it's easy to make those decisions. I just want to go back to reading for 1 second. So if for me, this thing that they do in school where there's all these comprehension questions and the vocabulary and they just kill it. Where I live, these kids, every time they read a book, they take a test on it. Talk about to me, I am shocked if any kid likes reading after going through that. To be tested on every book you read? What I would suggest is that at least once a week, maybe a couple times a week, you put it in your planner to remind yourself, and you have discussions about what your kids are reading, because those discussions are the most important thing. Because I find when I ask my kids questions, it takes a lot of prodding in a way to get them to clarify their thoughts about the things that are happening in the books, the ideas in the books, and to get them to express those thoughts clearly. So that's what you basically want to do, is ask questions, and you don't even have to have read the book. You can just, hey, what's the book about? Then they'll tell you really briefly, right? And then that will lead to another question. And then that'll lead to another question. And then you'll say, well, why'd they do that? Let me think about that. You have these amazing conversations. You don't have to have read the book. It doesn't have to be super academic. It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to take up a ton of your time. So again, that goes, and just reading isn't quite enough. You really need to engage with the material. So let's go to the third thing. I really think math is important. Again, everyone worries so much about the order of things and what are the standards. What does it matter? What do the standards matter, guys? You don't have to follow that. Just start with counting, then go to adding, and then add bigger things, and then subtract things, and then subtract bigger things, and then multiply things. It's not that important that everything happen in a certain order. You just take things one day at a time. Just make sure they're learning every day. Don't feel like that it's this science. It's not a science. Learning is not a science. You just take in information and you piece things together and you make connections. And math is the same way. Now, once you have those priorities, then you can fit in other things. Have you ever heard of the analogy of the jar with the big rocks and the little rocks? And this analogy is usually used to help people understand how to plan their time better. So the idea is you have to fit in your big rocks, and then you sprinkle in your little rocks and you shake them, and they fill in the gaps. Well, that's how you need to think of educating your kids. You need to have clarity on the question, why are you doing this? It might be similar to my reasons for doing this. It might not be, but you need to have clarity for yourself. Why are you doing this day in and day out? Why are you educating your kids? Why? Once you have clarity, that will help you pick your big rocks. Then you can fill in with little rocks. You can do some typing. Your kids can learn about dolphins. All of those, well, your kids can learn about dolphins when they read anyway, but do you know what I'm saying? You can fit in some music. You can fit in other things that are also important to you, but they're not the main big goals. One more thing I just want to address really quickly. People a lot of times will ask, how long should I spend educating my kids? You should educate, in my opinion, education is really important. So you should do it as long as you can during the day without making them hate it. So you want to find that sweet spot where they are challenged and they've done good work, but they're not overwhelmed either, and they're not hating life. And that's different for every kid. I don't care what your guidelines and your state are. I don't care. It doesn't make sense because every kid is really, really different. Every family is different. So you get as much in as you can in a day without making them hate life. That's what you do. So I really hope that was helpful, guys. If it was, please click thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, please click subscribe and the notification bell next to it. In the meantime, happy homeschooling and have a great day.